What up guys, Joachim here, Joachim Justin Morgan, and in this video I am going to kind of go over a little bit about where I've been the past 6 months and why I kind of quit making videos and dropped off on YouTube and all of those things. So as you might have gained from the title, I have been in a police academy and the goal has been to become a police officer. So I'm a couple weeks out still from being made an official police officer, but I have completed all of the at least difficult parts of the academy and am ready to be sworn in about 2 weeks. So I'm looking forward to that. It's been quite an experience. It's been required a lot of things, a lot of time and a lot of attention, and a lot of my energy has been placed into that, which is why I kind of quit making videos and quit doing things on YouTube. But I wanted to just take a brief moment to talk a little bit about why I wanted to become a police officer, or things that I think are noble about policing. I know the police get a lot of bad publicity, and it's very difficult, as somebody who wants to be a police officer, to see that and kind of want to do it. But just like, I'm an Orthodox Christian, and we have priests, and sometimes you'll see, in America at least, we've seen a lot of Catholic priests in particular get in trouble for very evil, very sinful things that they've done. And so, that doesn't mean that just because a priest did something very evil and very sinful, that suddenly all priests are sinful and evil. And in the same way, sometimes there are police officers who've made very bad decisions or done very bad things, very evil, very sinful things. And that doesn't mean that police officers in general are bad or evil. They have a job that is very noble. They have a lot of requirements that are placed on them with high expectations of morality, high expectations of virtue, and high expectations of professionalism when they are being faced with having to do very difficult things, make very quick decisions that require instincts that are very difficult to gain. And I've not always, in my academy training, done very well with, I mean, the morality of what I've done is fine. It's just scenario-based training that we've done. But I can tell you that some of those things are very difficult to do. We just finished a week of scenario training, and the idea is that we begin taking the things we've learned in the classroom or skills that we've gained through firearms, through defensive tactics and that kind of thing, and start putting them into place in as best as they can make real life scenarios. And that is very difficult, because we talk about what's called the OODA loop, or it's like that process where your brain filters information. So if you observe something, there's that split second where you're interpreting the information you received. And so that period, that time, is called the OODA loop. That's your brain putting that information together. So, all my class actually has, had good moments and bad moments. And I think part of it, and this is just what I think, because I'm not a police officer yet, and I'm not, experienced in all these things yet, but as I'm going through it, I think, reps or repeating these same things over and over again helps you tremendously to begin to rightly divide situations and how to respond to them. And I'm still a long way off from being there. So fortunately, I'll have about 6 months or so of field officer training, where I will be with a field training officer, FTO. And in that process, I will kind of learn to go through each of these motions in real life. So I'll be actually in real scenarios with real people, with a real police officer, and learning to kind of get my brain to do the right things when it comes to those scenarios. So for the most part, I actually did pretty okay in the scenarios until kind of towards the end. The last thing that we had took me by surprise, and I made a bad decision. And I'll kind of explain a little bit. I'll give a little bit of defense on my part. But, so in firearms, we spent the whole time learning to make a proper sight alignment and, lock onto our target. We don't put our finger on the trigger until we're ready to destroy whatever it is that we're pointing our pistols at. And so in this scenario, we were all told to go out we're just walking, we're just on foot patrol, and we are walking down a sidewalk, and while you're walking, you have no idea what's about to happen. So like you're kind of like looking around, like what is happening here, and you hear screaming. So I started to hear the screaming. I ran up, and this is a fictional scenario. This isn't actually happening, but it is happening like through actors. Like there's paid police officers there who are acting out this scenario, and you have to kind of figure it out. So you as the recruit come out and you begin to hear these things, but you don't really know what's happening. So I heard screaming from the actors, and I ran up and I saw a guy with a baseball bat, and he was hitting something. I assumed from the scenario that it was probably going to be a person, and he was yelling at someone. So I started to try to look for a way into the gate, and all the gates were locked. So this guy was behind a fence, and he, as you got around the corner, you saw legs, and he was hitting probably a woman or some person, and he was screaming at them. Some people actually heard what he was screaming. I became so like tunnel visioned in on the guy that I had no idea. And so the only way to prevent him from killing this person, which they were probably already dead because he was beating them mercilessly with a baseball bat, but the only way to stop them was to use a firearm. So I drew my pistol. It was a fake pistol, which that'll come in later, and it's had blanks in it. So it was, we call them blue guns. It's like a blue gun. Probably lots of police academies have them. I pulled it and I went to point it initially, but I don't know why there was some thing about pointing through the fence that didn't feel right to me. We have been trained to shoot through, like in stops and approaches, we were trained to shoot through windshields, but I had not encountered a fence yet, which seems like it shouldn't be an issue, but just in my brain, something happened. So I kind of I went up over the fence and tried to aim down, but obviously I'm not using my iron sights on the pistol because the gun's up here, and I was pointing at, probably 20 to 30 yards away. I'm not sure exactly how far it was, and I fired, which is what we were supposed to do. I did that part of the scenario right, but there's really no time when you're supposed to not use your iron sight. We are responsible for every round that is discharged from our firearm. So, if I'm firing 2 shots, which is what I did, probably should have fired more shots too, but it wasn't until afterwards, as soon as it finished, the sergeant for the academy was there, and he said, "Did you use your iron sights?" And I answered truthfully. I said no, but just the amount of like shame and disappointment that I felt in that moment was really tremendous. I don't know why I chose to do it that way. The appropriate thing would have been to fire through the fence at the person that was killing, their spouse or whoever the person was. That wasn't really relevant to the situation, but like their relationship. But yeah, so I did what I did, and afterwards it was kind of this feeling like I am really not ready for this profession. And the reason I say that is because there are an unlimited number of scenarios that police officers face on any given day. And it's easy, when I watch all these videos, like if you've ever watched like body cam videos or dash cam videos and you're watching police officers, it's so easy to think like, oh, they should have done this. We're trained to do this. Why didn't they do that? And I've watched many of those videos and thought those exact same things. I thought like, why, we're trained to do this. Why didn't they do this? I would have done this. And the reality is when you're in the situation and all that information is coming to you 1,000 miles per minute, that it's very difficult to react in the right way. So some of that's kind of starting to set in now that I know that I'm 2 weeks out from being sworn in as a police officer in a major, fairly violent city, and I will be expected to do that. So both spiritually, I'm going to have to be on point at all times. If I go into work and I'm not spiritually discerning, then those are things that can affect my decisions right away. But then just, in general, thinking through processes. I think some of the things that I wanted to relate in this video to Orthodox Christianity and police work, or how I'm beginning to evaluate police work as I begin to become a police officer is that this idea of the passions. So we talk a lot about passions. I've talked a lot on this channel about the passions. So in the West, we tend to call, we don't use the word passions as much. We tend to use vices. So these are things that like are tempting to us, things that we're given to. So for most men, there's like lust is a passion, it's a desire, it's a craving, and it could be not sinful if it's in the confines of marriage. That wouldn't be lust then. That is appropriately using desire for your spouse in the context of love. It's tempered with obedience and with fasting and prayer. But, outside of those things, then, it can be very sinful and it can give way to far more sinful things. So, so bridling your passions, like bridling those things or putting them under the subjection of Christ is a necessary thing. And it's very similar to how police work is. You can't allow like your, knee-jerk reactions to control you. You can't allow like those like immediate responses to overtake what you're going to do. You have to be mindful and thoughtful at every moment, and you only have a split second to do it. So some of that's kind of setting in for me right now as I begin to do this, and especially as I kind of had, at least a moment, there really were more throughout the week where I kind of failed to do those things. And for the most part, the instructors were like, that's why we're doing this, it's just to help you learn. The last one where it was a terrible way to end the week. I wish there would have been more scenarios after that so that I could have redeemed myself and felt better leaving the week. But, it happened the way it happened. Nobody really said, that's why we're doing this about that one. We really weren't given a chance. After that scenario ended, we were sent inside, told not to speak to anyone. It was entirely silent. So we went in and filled out a sheet of how we felt at that moment when those things were happening because it is kind of like you're there. It's like you're experiencing somebody murdering someone else and you have to stop them. So yeah, it is what it is. I want to be a very good police officer. I have a strong desire to do a good job in that. But, there's definitely a long way for me to go in becoming what I want to be. So basically the past 6 months, I've, not really made a lot of videos. I've made a few here and there for YouTube. Probably as I have a little bit less time focused on studies and things like that, then I might start making more videos, maybe 1 or 2 videos per week going forward now. And, back to the normal content that I've been putting out related to Orthodox Christianity, kind of what's going on in the Orthodox Church and that thing. I would like to grow my beard back because while we're in the police academy, we had to be clean shaven. It was a paramilitary police academy, so it's run kind of like the military. It was kind of like being in a 6-month boot camp, except you're allowed to go home at night. So that was pretty nice. I'm still with my family. I'm still in the same city. But I was paid throughout the police academy, so it's great in that way. But it was very time consuming. Often I came home and went back to doing work related to the police academy, or I had to work out, or because there's fitness things that you have to pass, and I've never been a runner before now, so it took quite a bit of effort for me to learn how to run, learn how to program running into a weekly fitness thing. I completely quit lifting weights, which was a major part of my life for well over a decade before I went to police academy. At the moment, I've resumed lifting weights and I've kind of continued some running, but it's definitely diminished back quite a bit. And I'm actually getting pretty good results now lifting and running, and I'm doing probably better in running than I was before. So, whatever. You live, you learn. There's lots of things that I've learned and adapted to, but yeah, so I did all this research before I started to make this video about the Byzantine Empire and the use of policemen in the Byzantine Empire, the use of policing. Of course, they weren't called policemen. They were law enforcement, usually like orders of something that was kind of like they weren't knights per se in the Byzantine Empire, but they were people that were appointed to civil service and to maintaining peace amongst the people. So it is a lot like police officers. They just didn't call them that. And throughout the Byzantine, or throughout the Western British, well, I was going to say the British Empire, that's a little bit later, but throughout like Great Britain and Ireland and the Western Isles, there was, the kind of similar things. And it, depending on what century you look at, those could have been very different things. But so we've always had these things related to the watchman on the wall in the scriptures. And, every generation and everything has brought about a new way of keeping peace within the civil people, within cities, civil services, and that kind of things. And those are all things that I've kind of looked at to rightly divide how I perceive and how I think of policing and how I think of the profession that I've chosen to go into now. And yeah, I wanted to bring those things up, but really they're not all that relevant exactly to why I personally decided to become a police officer. Those are things that I've kind of studied and learned a little bit about later. But yeah, so definitely I think the virtues, so I talked about the vices and how those things can negatively impact you, but like when we talk about virtue and Christian virtue of honor, of love, of caring for others, of like Paul talks about love in the book of, I think it's First Corinthians, not parentheses, First Corinthians, there's a chapter on love where he talks about love is patient, love is kind, love is gentle, love does not acknowledge a wrong done. Like those are things that I think are relevant. They can't be applied exactly the same way. Like we are acknowledging wrongs done because we're arresting people for having broken the law. So but when you stop someone from doing something evil to someone else, like that is an act of love. You're putting yourself in a bad situation for the benefit of somebody that you don't know. So, you may think like, well, you may kill someone in the line of duty, but you're stopping them from killing someone else. So maybe they've raped, abused, harmed, and murdered other people, and you're having to stop that person. And the appropriate response to them shooting you, which is usually why, if we go up to somebody who's done all those things, like we're not judicializing or we're not judging those people ourselves. We are arresting them so that they can face judgment. So if we go up to them and they are like, yeah, I'm guilty, take me in, or maybe they're like, nah, you got the wrong person, but they're still under arrest. If they come peacefully, we don't murder them. Like the police are not murderers. I'm not saying that that's never happened or that there aren't police officers that have made the wrong decision, but we have a code that we're abiding by, and it doesn't allow that. So, if somebody does that, they do it outside the parameters of what police officer and what policing is allowed to do. Now, is that tempting? Like you find somebody that's raped small children and you have to bring that person in. Do you want to hurt them? Probably, yeah. I think most people would, whether you're a police officer or not. Like you think this is a disgusting person that has harmed small children. Like you want them to face judgment, and maybe there's a tempting part of you that wants to be that judge. But hopefully, I think as a Christian police officer, an Orthodox Christian police officer at least, we have to remember that God is the ultimate judge. Like that, these people will face, and we're taking them to face civil justice. But the point is, I'm not the one that gets to bring judgment upon them. I bring them in so that they can face judgment. Now, if I am trying to track that person down and they pull a gun and they're running from me and trying to shoot me, yeah, I mean, the only thing I can do is shoot them before they kill me. So I have to face that, and that, there are church canons that talk about soldiers and people that face they've had to kill in the line of duty. So St. John Chrysostom, whose liturgy, most Orthodox churches celebrate, he had strong feelings about times of healing for soldiers that have killed people in the line of duty. That, is not always maintained. Like, I think that was a local canon or something that was in, but that was not a universal, like, Catholic canon of the Orthodox Catholic Church. So, depending on the scenario, depending on where you lived, depending on who your bishop and who your priest were, if you had to kill someone in the line of duty, that didn't necessarily mean that you had to be, take time for healing and not participate in communion and not be part of the community. Whereas under St. John Chrysostom, that was the case, I think. I'm not 100% sure on that, but I think that's how I remember that playing out. Because these are all things that I've thought about, things that I've read, things that I've wondered and tried to look up to understand better as an Orthodox Christian who might be in these scenarios. Now, it's not that often that a police officer has to fire and kill someone, but it is something that occasionally happens. Those are usually the ones that make big, high-profile news, and that you end up seeing as there was an officer-involved shooting where, somebody came running at them with a knife, and if somebody, if they're, 50 feet away from you and holding a knife, you're probably not going to shoot them. But if they're closing distance and getting closer, you're probably not going to run the risk of just trying to pepper spray them, because they'll just keep coming and you'll die. So, the appropriate response is to shoot them and then try to administer aid so that you preserve their life after that. So, those are scenarios that police officers face, and those are scenarios as someone wanting to be a police officer and wanting to be a good police officer. I have to prepare myself for how, both mentally and spiritually, I'll, take those situations. So I'm kind of going on. I've this video's like 21 minutes now, so I'm going to go ahead and stop it there. If you guys have any questions, please post them below. Personally, I'm trying to rightly divide all these things and understand them in a spiritual context and be the best Orthodox Christian that I can be, and be, become a good police officer. I'm not even a police officer yet. So in 2 weeks, I'll start doing my best to become a good police officer. But that's where I'm at right now, and that's where I've been for the past 6 months, and why I haven't really been making videos. So if you guys are still interested in following, please make sure you like, subscribe, and share this wherever it's relevant. Probably not really relevant outside my subscribers, but maybe it is, I don't know. You guys take it easy, and I'll talk to you hopefully in a video coming soon as opposed to later.